H.P. Lovecraft may have written some of the most well-known cosmic horror tales, but if you're looking for some fresh, madness-inducing terror, please join the conversation today. I've got a few recently published recommendations. Hey everybody, welcome to D3 Reads. It's Eric. Thanks so much for joining. If you're new to the channel, we read and review all fantasy, science fiction, and horror books. So if you haven't subscribed to us yet, please do. We're a growing community, and please be sure to comment because those conversations are what make this so fun. Today we're revisiting what is arguably one of the most unsettling kinds of horror, which is cosmic horror. It's a favorite, but outside of some of the masters like Lovecraft and Algernon Blackwood, it kind of is hard sometimes to find good cosmic horror tales. I've got 3 recommendations I want to give you that typically don't show up in cosmic horror book lists, but I'm going to argue they may have a very strong cosmic horror bent to them. So if you want to jump right to that, check the description. There's going to be links to the various sections. You could jump right to the recommendations portion of this video. Right now, I want to start with a really quick TBR update, plus some news and some upcoming books that you might want to add to your TBR. As far as my TBR, I mentioned last week that I had stumbled in early August and actually throughout August, and I hadn't made as much progress as I had wanted to. I'm finally picking up the pace, and right now for the Devils, I am making pretty good progress on that. Brandon Sanderson's The Well of Ascension, the second in the Mistborn series. I've made a lot of progress on that one. And R.F. Kuang's The Poppy Wars. So for my TBR, I've made a lot of good progress, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on them because those 3 books plus a number of others, I'm going to roll up into a fantasy video roll-up here in a couple of weeks. So that's where I'll do the in-depth descriptions and book reviews for each of those. But I will say that I am thoroughly enjoying the Devils. It's a kind of alternate history fantasy story that is just, the characters are just so interesting and they pull you in that you don't know who to root. Well, you kind of know who to root for, but you're also wanting to root for some of the bad guys in some of the cases. I mean, it's the Devils. So the story is just really, really engrossing. I'm enjoying it quite a bit, probably more than the other books. The other thing I'll say is the criticism I had of Mistborn, of the Final Empire, the first in the Mistborn series, is holding true for The Well of Ascension. I mentioned in a video a couple of months ago that it might sound petty, but I really feel that Brandon Sanderson's storytelling skills are pretty raw or immature, I guess, in these first books of his. And in fairness, those were his first novels, right? But The Well of Ascension started off, I think, tighter in terms of writing ability than the Final Empire, but it stumbles here and there, and I'm getting a little frustrated. I started keeping, this is going to sound petty as anything, so this, you may not like to hear this, but I noted before that that Brandon Sanderson's, at least in these books, Brandon Sanderson seems to have a very limited descriptive ability to impart on us, the reader, the emotions of his characters. And one of his favorites is the eye roll. I can't tell you how many times in the Final Empire the characters rolled their eyes at each other. They're being sarcastic, they're being funny, they're doing whatever, and just time after time to the point that it was distracting me. Well, this time I started keeping a tracker, and every time I read that a character rolled their eyes, I'm documenting it, and when I do my review, I'm going to give you an eye roll count. Might sound petty, but it's stuck in my mind. I shared that with you, so I hope I didn't ruin it for you. But I really feel that, I feel confident that Sanderson, who is such a prolific and popular writer, grew out of that. But in these early books, it's distracting, and I'm being petty about it. That's it for the TBR update. Now, I did want to mention, and I'm sure a lot of you are already tracking to this, but in September, one of the most popular sci-fi writers out there, John Scalzi, is coming out with his latest Old Man's War series, a book called The Shattering Peace. Now that's coming out, I forget the exact release date, but he's doing, I don't know if it's a full book tour or what, but he's actually going to be in Cleveland here. I want to say it's on the 23rd of September, and yours truly bought a ticket to see him. So I'll be getting my copy of The Shattering Piece then by going to hear him speak about it for, I think, about an hour. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, he's going to do a book signing and I'll be able to get some photographic proof by getting a picture taken with him. So I'm excited about that. So I'll have The Shattering Piece and hopefully get a book review for it here by the end of the year. I want to be doing another military sci-fi roll-up, and I'll let you know what I think about it then. And then October, Joe Hill will be coming out with his first book in a number of years called King Sorrow. And I'm really excited about that because I enjoy Joe Hill's style. He's a fantastic writer. But the problem is that this book, from what I hear, is huge, like 1,000 pages. I don't know, it's like his dad's The Stand, but it's going to be a massive book to try to read before Halloween's over. And I don't know, I'm a slow reader, so I don't know if I'll be able to get that done. But that's coming out in October. So if you're looking for books to add to your TBR, John Scalzi and Joe Hill both have new books coming out over the next couple of weeks. So keep your eyes open for that. We're going to start with real quick discussion of what is cosmic horror. As often is the case, Wikipedia has a nice, concise definition of it, distills it down succinctly, describing it as stories that emphasize the horror of the unknowable and incomprehensible. So think of Lovecraft's Cthulhu and the old ones, where beings are so ancient and so massive and so powerful that when a mortal sees them, their minds usually recoil and buckle because they simply can't deal with what it is that they're seeing. I remember, I forget which story it was, where the character sees creatures moving that are the size of mountains, and it's just freaking him out, as you would expect. So basically, the mortal protagonists in a cosmic horror story discover just how insignificant they are, and as well as humanity as a whole. There's a writer for Writer's Digest named Mariah Richards. I'm going to read this for you verbatim, but she sums it up greatly. She says this, quote, "Simply put, cosmic horror holds on to the idea that what we consider reality is merely a thin skin over a truth that is so alien that to try to comprehend it causes madness. The subgenre is often also hallmarked by the idea that our existence is wholly insignificant, we're all powerless, and huge hostile entities could destroy the world at any moment." So madness plays a big part in cosmic horror because when we mere mortals kind of get to see through the veil and are confronted by our own insignificance in the face of these cosmic terrors and doom, the mind reels. That's why if you do a search on YouTube for cosmic horror, you see a lot of them are these things dealing with things like black holes and personified cosmic forces and that sort of thing. So it's a neat subgenre. About a year ago, I posted a video talking about the masters of cosmic horror. And of course, you had H.P. Lovecraft and Algernon Blackwood, and then a couple of the more recent successful cosmic horror writers like Victor Laval, who wrote The Ballad of Black Tom, and John Langan, who did The Fisherman, who I enjoy those books quite a bit. So if you haven't seen that video on cosmic horror authors, check that one out. But it can be a little hard to find books that are actually considered cosmic horror. But since then, I've explored a lot of other horror books. And over the past 12 months or so, I've read a couple of books that struck me as having strong cosmic horror flavor to it, even though they aren't typically listed as cosmic horror in any cosmic horror listing. So if you're a fan of cosmic horror, you may want to check out these 3 books. So the first book is The House of Bone and Rain, written by Gabino Iglesias and published in 2024. I think he was nominated for a Bram Stoker Award, but this book tells the story of a group of friends, Gabe, Xavier, Tavo, Paul, and Bimbo. And over the years, they've lived a rough and tumble life in poverty, but they've always been there together. And this right away kind of sets up a cosmic horror dynamic because one flavor, if you will, of cosmic horror is kind of the weaving together of impersonable natural forces, and so nature, impersonal nature, who cares nothing of humanity, with supernatural forces. One of the best examples of that would be Algernon Blackwood's The Wendigo, for instance. Well, in The House of Bone and Rain, Iglesias' story tells us about the coming the hit and the aftermath of Hurricane Maria, and it just brings it pulls out these supernatural forces that play in the background. Now, the thing about House of Bone and Rain is also a very visceral kind of crime drama. A character's mother gets murdered, and who happens to be involved in crime. And so the characters are on a mission of vengeance to avenge this one of their best friends' mother's deaths. But that's interwoven with this kind of larger horror story that's going on at the same time. And I argue that this is very much a cosmic horror tale. Matter of fact, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Of the three books I'm going to describe to you, this book is tightly written. It's solid horror and very well told. But I would argue it's the least terrifying as far as getting nightmares and that kind of thing. It's not that kind of scary, though. It's got the scary elements to it, the horror elements to it. But I would argue that fans of H.P. Lovecraft will enjoy this book far more than other than say readers who don't appreciate H.P. Lovecraft's work. And for fear of doing any kind of spoilers, I'm not going to say any more. But if you've read this book, drop in the comment whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Just don't put any spoilers in the comments, please. So, House of Bone and Rain by Gabino Iglesias, published in 2024. I think it's got a very strong cosmic horror bent to it, so check it out. Next up is Mexican Gothic, written by Silvia Moreno-Garcia, and is published in 2020. As the title suggests, this story is a foray into Gothic horror, right? In fact, I did a collection of horror books last year, Best Gothic Horror, and I included the review of this book in that. But the thing is as you read this and you kind of peel back the layers, you find it's rooted very much in a cosmic horror kind of storyline. The protagonist of the story is a young woman who lives in Mexico in the 1950s. Her cousin gets married and is whisked away out into the middle of nowhere in rural Mexico, and they become very concerned for her. So her name's Naomi, is sent by her father to explore or to make contact with this family that her cousin's been married into, and they live in this large Gothic kind of castle called High Place. And so Naomi's finds herself kind of isolated in this dank, dark kind of castle manor, surrounded by mysterious family, and it's a very well-written story. I think it's got lots of good, legitimate, creepy horror parts. And as I say, it's a Gothic horror story, but the more you delve into it, the more you get a sense of cosmic horror. Again, I don't want to provide any spoilers on this, but again, if you read this book, let me know in the comments whether or not you would agree with me. But I think I can make the strong case that this is a cosmic horror story just as much as it is a Gothic horror story. So, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. Great book. Check it out. And finally, this last book is my favorite of the three. I've talked about it a number of times. I brought it up a number of times in a few videos, which is Stephen Graham Jones' The Only Good Indians. Now, this is an unusual story just altogether. It was not what I was expecting, but it is a good, solid horror story. But as I read it, I reflect on it, and this does very much seem to me to be in the vein of an Algernon Blackwood, the Wendigo or the Willows type story. Because while on one side of it, you could argue it's not a cosmic horror because the supernatural element is kind of in response to the excesses and sins of some of the main characters in the story. The overarching, I think, supernatural phenomenon is very much a cosmic horror kind of flavor to it. The Only Good Indians tells a story of, like the House of Bone and Rain, a group of friends who, but in this case, in their youth, or at least a few years when they were much younger than what's in where the story starts off, they do something that results in a turning point in their lives that will come back to haunt them later on. They all know it. They all know that what they did was a bad thing, but they try to press on with their lives, and yet they can't do that. Forces are set off in motion that come back to take vengeance on them for the actions that they did when they were younger. And it's relentless. The story is chilling in parts. I think I got the most actual frights reading this book than compared to the other two books that we've covered here. But Stephen Graham Jones is a fantastic writer. He has a slightly different style than a lot of your writers. It's very much a first-person present tense kind of book, kind of sentence structure, and it kind of throws you off at first. At least it did me. So be prepared for that. You're going to read it, and it's going to seem just slightly jarring the way he writes, but it works. It works really, really well. So Stephen Graham Jones. This is the only book of his that I've read, but I went out immediately after reading this and I got my hands on The Buffalo Hunter, which, as I mentioned before, is a vampire story, and I'm going to read that as part of my Spooktober roll-up. So I'm going to give you a book review on my second Stephen Graham Jones book here in just a couple of weeks. So The Only Good Indians, I think, is for most bang for your buck. If you're looking for something with a cosmic horror flavor, I think this one. I think the Only Good Indians is probably a great place to start. So those are them. Those are the three books I'm recommending. That if you are a fan of cosmic horror and you just haven't found anything from any new authors, check these three out. Again, if you haven't seen our Masters of Cosmic Horror video, I'm going to put a link to that in the video as well. So check it out. As always, let me know what you think about any of these books, or if you have suggestions on good cosmic horror written by, by modern writers. I'm always wanting to read the next best horror story, the next best book. So please drop a comment. Let me know what you like in cosmic horror. Thanks so much for joining, guys. Really appreciate your time. Continue reading. Have a great day.